Here we go, AP Euro. Let's take a look at the post-Napoleonic world. We're going to look at a couple different things today, but mainly we're focusing on the early half of the 19th century. I'd like to give credit to a lot of different teachers and historians who've put out different books and PowerPoints I use to collaborate with to make this video possible. A good way to use this video. First of all, you're going to have to pause and go back and forth depending on concepts you grasp and concepts you have difficulty with. Please use this video as a resource. Rewind it, revisit it, come back often. For those of you who have Mr. Side, give him feedback when you see him. All right, there's no perfect way of doing things. There certainly can be mistakes that are made in the classroom, and if you see them, speak up and let somebody know. This is also one of the first attempts at this, so be constructive with your criticism. All right, with that said, let's take a look at some of the key themes when it comes to the age between 1815 and 1848. Oftentimes we hear this known as the age of conservatism or the age of Metternich. This is a time when elements of conservative forces want to return to the pre-1789 world. They want to put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. One of the flaws here is that the Congress of Vienna and the concert system and the Holy Alliance and all the work that these conservatives are going to do completely ignore the forces of liberalism and nationalism. I said a few minutes ago the genie, they're attempting to put the genie back in the bottle. Once an idea is out there, it's awfully hard to get it back in. And instead of trying to find elements of liberalism and nationalism that they can agree with, they attempt to stomp it down whenever they can. We will find conservatives like Bismarck and others of the second half of the 19th century will do a better job of bringing those forces in and taking pieces of them. We will see a lot of revolutions and uprisings between 1815 and 1848 because of this attempt to clamp down on liberalism and nationalism, and because of the freedoms that people learned about during the French Revolution. France will be the driving force in many of these revolutions. We'll hear that expression, when France sneezes, Europe catches a cold. That I guess is credited to Prince Metternich. We'll also see that in the 19th century there will be many different philosophical isms that are created. We'll talk in a few minutes about liberalism, nationalism, conservatism, but we've also got elements of romanticism, socialism, communism, anarchism. There's a variety of forces that will be unleashed in response to the French Revolution, in response to the Industrial Revolution, so to speak. Two key results here, though. The balance of power that the Concert of Europe and the Congress of Vienna so wanted to hold on to is held on to about 1870, 1871, when the Germans under Bismarck and Prussia unify. That will shift the balance of power and get us into a whole array of diplomatic issues. While that's happening, you also have largely a prevention of major international world wars till we get to 1914 and the advent of World War I. So while there are some minor skirmishes that take place, there are the wars of German unification. Those wars are relatively quick and relatively isolated. All right, so here's our agenda for this video. We're going to be looking at a couple different pieces, and we're not going to be doing all these in one video. We'll split some of them up. But here's the overall agenda for this series of videos. We want to look at the Congress of Vienna and this time period known as the Age of Metternich, and look at the goals and aspirations of conservative forces. To do that, we'll need to understand liberalism, nationalism, conservatism, these three forces kind of working in some cases with each other and in some cases against each other. We'll look at the concert system, the Holy Alliance, and the way in which conservative forces attempted to keep down liberal and nationalistic uprisings in the 1820s and 1830s. We'll look at a period of other isms that are taking place, things like socialism, romanticism, in response to the time period. And then we'll close with the big series of revolutions, 1848. We'll look at why they started, why for the most part they failed, and what the consequences are. There are things that come out of it. There are some positives that come out of it for the people who are fighting for freedoms. And we'll close with a look at why England and Russia, to a certain extent, are different. England will be different in many cases because it actually makes attempts to reform itself over time, slowly but surely. And in Russia, they just violently put down any bits of attempts at liberal reform. So that's our agenda for today. That's what we will be focusing on. Now's a great time to pause the video and take notes on any of the previous clips. And then we'll move forward. So here we go. Let's take a look at the Congress of Vienna. Quick review. I know those of you guys who have me in class know that we've talked about this to some extent, and you're probably tired of hearing it, but throw it in the video anyway, just so we have it for review purposes. This Congress of Vienna is taking place from 1814 to 1815. The major powers of Europe, as well as lesser states, are coming to Vienna. The Big Four, which I've used as a quick little object here called PAIR: Prussia, England, Austria, Russia. There are other ways to assemble that word, but I thought PAIR is the most appropriate. Metternich of Austria is known as the architect, and this meeting that takes place from 1814 to 1815 is known as the Dancing Congress. It's, a lot of parties, a lot of galas, a lot of balls. People stop partying a little bit during Napoleon's 100 days, but once he's subdued, they get back in action. They have three main goals: legitimacy, compensation, and balance of power. And we'll explain those in a few minutes. First, let's take a look at this map here. Great time to pause the video, take a look at both maps, take a look at what changes between 1812, sort of the height of Napoleon's power as he's on his way into Russia, and 1815 after he's finally been defeated. I would pause the video now and analyze the maps. Okay, and as we take a look at this map, there are a lot of changes that take place between the Congress of Vienna, the actual details of the various different treaties, and taking a look at this map here. But in essence, one of the things that they're trying to do here, we'll talk about legitimacy in a second and everything, but in terms of compensation, they're going to provide land to the major powers that spilled blood and expended money to fight Napoleon. So you can see, England's going to get some military bases around the world, some colonial possessions. Austria will take back some provinces. Prussia is given territories on the Rhine. They're known as the Sentinel on the Rhine. The Kingdom of the Two Sicilies are given back to the Bourbons. Legitimacy, we talked about before, is putting different people back on the throne. But there's a lot of changes. One interesting note here as we look at Napoleon's Confederation of the Rhine and the German Confederation, Napoleon is responsible, whether maybe he liked it or not, for the growth of German nationalism that we will see taking place after he's gone, and certainly under Bismarck. But many of the things that he established in his Confederation of the Rhine are kept within the newly constructed German Confederation, something to take a look at. Okay. Here's a list of the key players at Vienna. And again, you may notice some of these slides. They've been adapted from some various other PowerPoints around on the internet, but here's a great slide of the five major players at the Congress of Vienna. You notice that even Talleyrand of France is present at these meetings, and ultimately we'll find out that while France is dealt with and will have to ultimately pay an indemnity and give up some of its land, it's not punished too harshly because they don't want an angry France coming back and stirring up troubles again. Okay, here we go. Legitimacy. What are we talking about when we say legitimacy? We're talking about restoring some of the original ruling families. So any of the major ruling families around Europe that were displaced because of the Napoleonic Wars or the wars of the French Revolution, there's an attempt made to restore those families. The big idea here is that we're putting conservatives back on the throne to try and go to that pre-1789 era. We talked about a few of these things before. Compensation, returning and paying the participants of the Napoleonic Wars and the German and the French Revolutionary Wars, pay them back with land, with colonies, etc., etc. You can look in your textbook for a lot of specifics on it, and I'll be putting up a couple slides in a few minutes that deal with some of this stuff here. Everybody gets something, and everybody who participated for the most part gets a little something. There are some conflicts and almost a war that takes place as the Prussians and Russians are looking to get more. The French, the British, the Austrians will side together. War will be averted, and they'll be able to work their details out. After Napoleon's 100 days, they add a 5-year military occupation on the backs of France, which they'll have to pay for with a $700 million franc indemnity. Here's the basic big idea set up, though. Major powers are getting something for their troubles. You don't want to punish France too harshly because you don't want to create a nationalist powder keg. And here's a nice map here that just shows the makeup of the Bund, or the German Confederation, that will be born post-Napoleon. They'll take the 300 German states that sort of existed before Napoleon invades, bring it down to something a little bit more than 30 states. Here on these slides, and you take a couple minutes to go through it, great time to pause the video and read through it. You don't need to know all these things. We're just giving you just some of the details of things that are happening. We're seeing that anything that the French kind of got with Napoleon, we see some of that taken away. Russia is awarded most of Poland. Prussia, as we said, gets some territories in the west. We create the German Confederation. Other groups of people are given back territory and awarded some additional territories, as you'll see Austria getting a little something extra in return. The Dutch are the Dutch House of Orange is put back on the throne of Holland, and Holland is combined with what will become Belgium. And that's going to lead to a series of problems that we'll see in the revolutions of 1830, because there's all types of political and religious disagreements. Here we have another list of results of this conflict. Great time to pause the video, jot a couple of these down for our notes. Great time to take a break, pause the video, go back, review some of your material, and we'll see you again on the other side.